Hello everyone, so I'm here today to give you my results for the Octafinal Booktube Prize judging. If you don't know what the Booktube Prize is, I will link down below Robert's announcement, but basically it is a prize organized by Robert from Barter Hordes, who has a YouTube channel, and he organized this prize to let YouTubers and people in the community, commenters and people have blogs or Instagram or whatever, to judge according to them what's their favorite book of, in this case, 2020. So it has 4 rounds, and in each round the judges are given 6 books to read and rank them from 1 to 6, and based on those rankings he compiles the list, and 3 of the books go through to the next round, and that process goes until the finals, which is the final 6 books. I was a judge this year for the non-fiction category in the Octafinals, and I was judging Group H. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to talk about the books in order from the one that I like the least to the one that I like the most. So my rankings from the 6th to the 1st. So my 6th place is The Third Rainbow Girl by Emma Copley Eisenberg. And this one is sort of a true crime about these 2 girls that were murdered, and they were Native Americans, so it has that twist to it. And I was excited about it at the beginning because I thought, oh, it's something more than just a true crime, and it has this Native American twist to it. But to be honest, this book was all over the place. It did talk about these 2 girls, but also it was a bit of a memoir, and it was also a bit of a dry academic non-fiction about the treatment of women, and it was just very scattered. I didn't get into the actual story. When I go to a true crime, I expect to be into the story and read a little bit like a mystery fiction, but I didn't get that because it was so scattered with all these other facts. About the treatment of women and the treatment of Native Americans, which are both very important things to discuss, but they just didn't fit within the structure that the author was trying to use. So I think that it would have been a little bit more, I think it would have been a lot more useful if she would have just stick to making a book about those things and not try to make it a true crime. But yeah, still it did discuss some interesting topics, but not in a way that I think worked. And if I'm going to recommend a book about the struggles of Native Americans or the struggles of women, I think I will choose other books for that. So that's why this one is the last one in my list. So the next one, the 5th place, is for Eat the Buddha by Barbara Demick, and this one, I was actually debating between this one and the 4th one, which one would go first, because they have similar, well, not similar feelings, but they have similar levels of enjoyment for me. So this one is about when the author went to Tibet, and she looked into how Tibetans were treated, and in particular this woman, which was one of the last people to survive from the royal family of the Dalai Lama. And I found this interesting while I was reading it, a little bit difficult to follow at times because there are a lot of names and there are a lot of places that I didn't know, and there's a map at the beginning, but still it was not enough for me to be acquainted with these people. Ultimately, the reason why I put it here in the 5th place is because I read it like a month ago and I barely remember anything about it anymore. I think the facts that they were exploring about the way that China treated the Tibet in the 50s and the way that they took control and they treated Tibetan people was really interesting, and it's also an important story to tell. But I think the way she told it was focusing on this girl or woman. And it just felt a little bit scattered, and I was not that interested in many points. I don't know why people try to make these kind of books feel a bit like a memoir. I guess it's because most people are more into that kind of writing, but I would have just preferred a more fact-based approach of the invasion of China in Tibet. I guess that's just personal preference, but that's how I felt about it. And yeah, as I said, I can barely remember anything about this book anymore, and it has only been a month, so it clearly didn't make a big impact. Then the fourth one for me was Notes of a Silencing by Lacy Crawford. And this one is about Lacy Crawford. It's another memoir. Maybe I don't like memoirs, but it is about Lacy Crawford, who went to a very elite high school in the US, and she was raped by two of the older students. And this book focuses mainly on what happened after, and all the efforts that the school and these people took to silence her. And I think that's a very important story to tell, and I feel a little bit awkward like trying to judge someone's story like that. But I think that if we are talking about rape, all stories are useful, of course, and all stories should be out there, and I'm happy that this was published and the story came out. But if I am going to recommend a book about what it is to be raped and what happens after, I would much rather recommend something else, and that's why this is in the fourth place. I think that the beginning of the book was a little bit, I don't know if too graphic. It relished on the details of the rape a little bit too much for me. And also there is a chunk of the book, maybe like 30-40%, in which we just see her struggle with that, and until she tells her mom, there is, for me at least, there is not much of a commentary on the ways that people try to silence her, more about her inner struggles of coming out with the story. Which again, important, but it was not done in a way that was compelling. It started to be compelling for me from the moment that she told her mom. And that it was like 30-40% into the book. So I think that was a little bit of a struggle to get through at first. And also I think that the other thing that bothered me about this book is that obviously this woman went to this very prestigious high school, and even after the rape she continued going to that school because she wanted to go to Princeton, and that was like a blank card for her to go to Princeton. And although I understand why someone would feel forced to do that, and how schools like this with a lot of money would be more prone to try to silence anyone that says something like this, I felt like she never acknowledged properly the privilege that she had, because she's clearly in this middle high class that is able to afford plane tickets from one day to another and these very fancy universities and high schools, and she never acknowledged that. And that's rubbed me the wrong way, because obviously, I mean, that doesn't mean that she didn't go through something horrible and that she shouldn't put out her story, but I just felt like she should have acknowledged that at some point, and she didn't. So yeah, that's why this one is in the fourth place. Then in third place we have Eleanor by David Michaelis, and this is a huge biography of Eleanor Roosevelt. I didn't know anything about Eleanor Roosevelt before this book. Now I know a lot, I guess. So this one, it was quite interesting. I learned a lot. I think it was really, really well researched. And I felt like it was interesting. And if anyone is interested already in Eleanor Roosevelt, this is a great resource. The reason it's in my third place is first because there is another similar memoir that I liked better in this group, and second because I think that even though I learned a lot and I ultimately enjoyed this to some extent, I was not particularly interested in Eleanor Roosevelt before I started this book, and I didn't feel like this book made me interested in her from the beginning. I feel like this is just written for people that already like and are interested in Eleanor Roosevelt. And for that it's a great resource, but if you are not, it doesn't create that extra bit of excitement about her. As so yeah, for that reason I think that that's in my third place. But I think that if you are interested, it sounds in any way interested in this woman, I think this is a great resource. Also, yeah, I didn't know a lot about the things that she did and the stance that she took. And yeah, it was interesting to learn about that. So yeah, I liked it, but I think that, as I said, there's another biography in this group that I liked better. So yeah. So in second place I have Our Bodies, Their Battlefields by Christina Lamb, and this is a very brutal book. It is a journalistic account of how rape is used in war to manipulate people, and how it should be treated as its own thing and not just part of the violence that happens in war, because it does affect and change these women's lives for the rest of their lives, and even when the war is over they often cannot, they still have to deal with the consequences of those rapes. And basically it gives Christina Lamb went through a lot of places in which has been war and has been accounts of rapes within the war. So for example the Yugoslavia war, but also in Congo. There was the part about Congo was particularly heart-wrenching because I didn't like. There are men there that are raping 18 months old girls, and I just don't even know how that works. Like how do you do that? Like I don't know, that blew my mind. But yeah, so I still remember all of these details because it was so impactful and so heart-wrenching. And the only thing I will say that I felt a little bit that it could have been better addressed is the fact that basically the point of rape being a crime of war separate from everything else is done in the first one or two stories, and then it's just like adding more examples to that thesis, but it doesn't actually add that much to the actual point, if you know what I mean. It's just a bunch of examples of how rape is used, and I mean they all have slightly different things, and it is important to know about all of the communities that have gone through this. There was also, I mean, there were a lot of cases, like also the Rwandan genocide, and I think there is this tribe in Kosovo or somewhere like that that have gone through it, and all these people that are fighting against these things, and some of these people have gotten Nobel Prizes after a while for their fight against this rape culture. And I think it's super interesting and super important that we learn about that. And I think this was quite well written and very well researched. I just think that at some point it was a little bit too much of violence after violence after violence, and example after example after example. But I do encourage everyone to read this because I think it's important. And finally, in my number one, I have The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson, and this is again a biography of Winston Churchill. and that's the one that I think it was better done than Eleanor. And the reason I think that is because the tone was very narrative and very conversational, so it made it a lot more easier to read. And also, I mean, I was not particularly interested in Churchill, I was not particularly interested in Eleanor, I'm not particularly interested in the Second World War or any of the people that took part on that side of history. So I was going into this thinking, well, maybe it's not for me, but actually, Erik Larson has a writing style that sucks you in, and I was so interested and I was reading so fast because I just wanted to know more about this very eccentric, very interesting character. I think part of it is because the author includes a lot of anecdotes, very funny anecdotes, and that's part of the fact that Winston Churchill was a very eccentric character, so it's easy to come up with these things, and I don't know how much of it is fiction and how much it is actual real research. I think this book is quite well researched, but I'm just saying that I don't know how much of it is just a flourish of things that people might have said here and there. But yeah, it made me very interested. I also learned a lot about the Second World War, which, I mean, I know most people study that in school. I didn't because Spain was not part of it, so we never studied in detail. We studied the Civil War, which was just exactly before that, but not the Second World War so much. I know it in part is manipulating the reader because it's very sensational and very like gossipy, and it goes into a lot of details, but I think that's part of the charm of the book, that it gets you engaged, and also reading about the more political and more subtle things that were going on with Churchill and the people around Churchill at this time. So yeah, I really liked it. I really recommend, even if you think that you are not interested in Churchill, I think you might be interested at the end of this book, so you might want to pick it up. But yeah, those were my ratings. Let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought about them. Also, what you think about the Booktube prize, and if you have been participating as a judge, I would love to know as well. And if you have a video, let me know because I want to watch it. And that's all for me. Until next video, bye!